Your Creative Push, episode 96.
You just kind of got to keep going with it. What's really inside of you. I think there's a point past inspiration to commitment.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Michael Broom. Michael is a talented concept designer who has worked on such films as Wolverine Origins, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, Stephen King's The Mist, and Cabin in the Woods, just to name a few. He cut his teeth doing comic book illustration and caricatures at Walt Disney World. But, Michael, I have to say that your work does not look like it came from Disney World, which is awesome. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I guess I think I was traumatized at a young age, seeing movies like Jaws and stuff. And, my dad kind of liked to scare me with creepy things. And I think it just got into me at a young age. And somehow that has stuck with me all this time. So, somebody's got to design monsters. It might as well be me, right?
Absolutely. So then what was it like for you, like when you worked at Disney World and it's just like not monsters?
It was funny because I was just I was still a teenager when, I decided, hey, I'll just go to Disney World. And they had this really nice, like, animation art studio there that had all these people that were painting, and it was just really beautiful, studio. And my plan was, I'll just go there and I can start, designing and drawing and doing cartoons. I literally could draw Mickey Mouse with my eyes closed. I'm like, this would be great. I could get into an art career. And at the time I was sandblasting glass. So I was like carving and sculpting glass,
cool.
Sandblasting in Miami, which was a lot of fun too. But, so when I went to Disney World, that was kind of the plan. But then I got rejected by the animation department like 5 or 6 or 7 times, and it just quite happened. So,
yeah.
And of course, eventually they did shut the animation department down. Everything's done by computer now, and, all these guys have flown to the 4 winds, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure. So then what was like kind of your transition away from Disney World and starting to do what you do now?
Well, being that the animation department didn't work out for me so well, I answered an ad that was looking for like caricature artists that were these kind of portraiture, quick sketch, comic book cartoon artists that were kind of stationed around the park and different hotels and stuff around Disney World. And I thought this would be easy enough. And I got into doing that, and I did it for almost about 10 years. And it was a really kind of an easy schedule because I think it was like 6 to 11 at night, and you got just paid commissions. So some days you were making a couple $100 a day, and some days you weren't making anything. So I kind of was doing that for a while, and it really helped me artistically just to be able to work under pressure, for one thing. Because, it's all done with magic markers, and you don't really get do-overs. You got to just commit, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So after doing that for a while, I really got confident in drawing and working around crowds and having high pressure stuff. And the guy I was working for kind of left the business, and we all got laid off. And then I worked around town in Orlando, Florida, at some little malls and stuff, and for a couple of the little sort of similar businesses like that. And I kind of just got to a point I wasn't happy, and I kind of just wanted to get out of it. And a friend of mine that worked out there, named Pat Tantella, who was a makeup artist and a special effects guy, he was coming out to California, and he said, hey, you should go to LA, man, you should go to California. And of course, that's a big move. And at the time, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm really ready to do that. And he flew me out here for a job. They were building a big, I think it was like a 60-foot, the Paramount logo.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a big Paramount mountain, and carved this thing out of styrofoam, like huge. It was like, I think it was like 20 or 30 feet high. It was giant.
Wow.
Some event in Vegas, and they flew me out here just to airbrush paint the whole thing, and I've been painting with an airbrush since I was, 12 years old. So it was kind of second nature to just jump into painting something large scale like that. And then once I kind of had an opportunity like that, I just jumped into it. Really, I took a risk and told everybody I was going to just move out here, and everybody said, we'll see you in 6 months, and you come back. And
thanks, friends.
Yeah, I know, right? So and I kind of halfway really expected just to not everybody comes to LA expecting to be the next big thing and make it. And a lot of people end up waiting tables or bartending or just moving back. And, I was very lucky to have some good opportunities and just kind of gradually start building not so much a fan base, but a client base of people that I always work with,
Do you ever regret that it took you 10 years to do that, or a little over 10 years to kind of make that leap? Or was it just mostly about getting that opportunity or that friend to kind of push you to do it?
I do. I've said numerous times I wish I would have moved out here sooner, and gotten into it quicker and just taken the risk, because even my mom said, let me get this straight. You don't have any money saved up. You don't have a place to stay, and you don't know anybody, and you don't have a steady job. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So I kind of just dove into it, and, I worked on a lot of really low budget movies and commercials and stuff, and some of the things that just never even got released. I mean, one of the first kind of big things I did was a Super Bowl commercial, and I told all my family, my friends, I did a Super Bowl commercial. Make sure you watch the Super Bowl. And let me preface this by saying I'm not a football person at all.
Sure.
And I was so excited to have something on television in the Super Bowl, and they didn't air the thing.
Oh man. So brutal.
One of those kind of stories, but kind of gradually, it's I started working on things that I could tell my dad about, and he would have heard of. I wanted one of the Alien versus Predator movies early on, and I think I did one of the Santa Claus 3. I think I was on, and we did designs for the Jack Frost character, which was it was such a great learning experience for me, because we went in and designed everything, and for me, looking at it, saying he should be really cool, should be kind of this goblin sort of guy, and then of course they hire an actor. I think it was Martin Short, you know what I mean? And then I realized if they're paying for Martin Short, they've got to be able to see the actor in there too. So
yeah,
you kind of had to make it where it looks like the guy that the studios want to see,
Sure, yeah, that's a difficult challenge too.
There's always things to learn in the business, because there's so many different people you're trying to kind of appeal to.
Right. Well, and that's one of the cool things, is that you don't become complacent, because you're always kind of on your toes and able to continue learning, as you said.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
So I know that you do that, and you're also working on a book now. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to do that on the side? Come home from work and maybe be tired and maybe be creatively burnt out, and then still do the work anyway.
Yes, I can actually. I think I've been on this thing about almost 2 years now, where Los Angeles, everybody's got a screenplay, everybody's got a script, and I've not had anything made from a script, but I've written a few scripts, because a lot of people, they say, hey, we can come up with, $500,000 or $1 million. Let's get a project together. Do you have any ideas? And of course, I do. But then you have to kind of cater towards a smaller sort of budget. So one day I decided I'm just going to write something just big and cool, and something that I would want to go watch. And the more I kind of got into it, the more I kind of realized there was a lot of sort of illustration and a lot of design stuff. I mean, it's like a big Star Wars world, So I said, it would be easier just to try and do it as a graphic novel. Everybody likes comic books, it's fun, and they're, studios are looking at properties like that anyway. So let me start developing that a little bit. And it kind of started off with me just sort of thumbnailing things and getting up early. And, some days, I get up at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and just start on it and have a few hours before work, or come home, or even on my lunch break, I'll just have my sketchbook and be writing down things and just trying to kind of generate a little bit more to it. It doesn't matter how much you put into something. It just matters that you put something into it. Because when I first started it really felt like just I was looking at a mountain, and somebody handed me a spoon and said, just move this mountain over there.
Yeah, man.
Felt just like a Herculean effort. And now I'm literally just a page or two from just being done and being able to start showing it to people. And, with today's technology, I could self-publish it, or I could just post it all online. You know what I mean? It's just with the internet, all things are possible, but I think a lot of people, they gave up after a little while, because, you get into something and you start working on it, you don't see any, any feedback yet, or somebody tells you it sucks. And, I think you just kind of got to keep going with it. What's really inside of you, I think there's a point past inspiration to commitment. If you're going to cut an album, or you're going to, do a painting of the Mona Lisa, or you're going to do a sculpture, you just kind of have to just commit to finishing whatever that thing is, beyond what your initial inspiration is. Think about what are you going to do with it, where the next one's going to be, what your portfolio is going to look like in another year, and a lot of people can't look past the next year, or they can't really see past the pain, I mean, it's hard work.
And like you said, when it's like a mountainous task and you only get a spoon to kind of move it with, you just kind of have to not think about the mountain. You just look down at the spoon, and it's just dig in, take a bite, and then once that spoonful's done with, then, do another one. And almost like put the blinders onto the project as a whole. And then that's like the first thing. Then the second thing is, like you're saying, the point you're at now, where you're like, all right, now I've done this thing, and now I can start to think about, where I want it to go.
Yeah.
How I want to approach that.
For sure. Because
I think that's something that holds people back. They work on the sale of it, or like how are they going to promote it, what are they going to do with it, rather than the actual doing of it, and that kind of holds them back sometimes too.
Yeah, people hate the process. A lot of times it's a chore. Some days that pen gets heavy, man. That brush gets heavy some days, but
absolutely,
it's just one of those things that you just kind of got to plow through it and keep going and look at what the next month is going to be like. Don't think too far down the line. Just think about the next step and getting to where you're going to be. But another thing I was going to say is that I have kind of started surrounding myself more with people who are really a lot better than I am, or a lot more successful than I am. I mean, people that have won Academy Awards, and, people that have written books, and some of my peers are publishing and making their own films and stuff. So it's really, an inspiration to look at people that have, started sometimes from nowhere. I mean, I started from nowhere. And I think gradually I'm kind of getting somewhere. I'm working on TV shows and movies and things. And, I love my career and I love my life now. And I think I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, well, what's next? I kind of need to start thinking about something else that, I can start being more creative instead of saying, I'm going to create a cool mummy for this movie. I'm going to create, a project about a mummy,
Yeah, absolutely. Big picture.
Right. As much as I do like my job, a lot of times, it can get kind of frustrating too, because you work on something and you're like, okay, this is going to be awesome. And then you go see the movie and you're like, that's it.
Yeah, it's out of your hands. Yeah.
What happened, man?
What'd you do, man?
What happened? And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you watch it, you're like, wow, this is really awesome, and everyone loves it. I've worked on a couple of TV shows that are doing quite well, and people have, big fan bases and followings of them. So it's very exciting to see some of those things come to fruition as well.
Does that ever get like frustrating? Like if you have on your resume like a particular movie that just sucked as a movie, but your work on it was awesome. Do you ever like almost like leave that out of when people are asking you about what you do?
No, actually, some of my best jobs that were the most fun, the end products weren't really. They kind of missed their full potential, I think.
Yeah,
and I understand as a producer, you're sinking, $20 or $50 or $100 million into something. You don't know what people are going to respond to,
right?
Until it's finished, and by that time it's just too late. Some things they grow legs after a while. I mean, like some of Alfred Hitchcock's movies, like Vertigo and stuff, just bombed and didn't do well. And movies that people hated when they came out, 10, 20, 30 years later, some of those movies are classics.
Yeah, that's true. You can't quite judge like you can't base it off of what opening weekend does. Like we were talking about before, Cabin in the Woods, which you worked on, was just like, it's become one of my favorite movies, but like it wasn't, like I didn't even see it till it was out on Netflix. I don't think I even heard of it until then.
People missed it, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked on a movie called The Mist that it's just a lot of people, it kind of burned them to begin with, but it's kind of got this little great cult following now when it's such a great Stephen King story and it was so well directed and put together. You know what I mean? It's just.
I love that movie.
Me too.
So creepy at the end too. It's just like
kind of a downer, though.
absolute. Well, so many. But you have to expect that when Stephen King puts his name on something. Like, you know what I mean? When it's Stephen King's the whatever, you got to expect to not necessarily be feeling like, you know, roses after.
Sure. And it's hard. It's hard to end a project as well. I mean, not a lot of movies have really good endings that people walk out of the theater and go, "Wow."
Right.
So it's hard to do. You know, I have nothing but the highest respect for directors and producers that have to battle things like that, or they're handed a property that it's, you know, they have to do something with it. You know, in some cases, it was a perfect movie the first time around, and then they said, "Hey, we're going to do another version of it. What are you going to do?"
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand that sort of pressure, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't get to work on the latest Star Wars movie, but I worked with J.J. Abrams on Star Trek 2.
Really?
Yes, I did some alien design and stuff for that film.
Oh, cool.
But, you know, I remember when they were talking about the Star Wars movie, I was like, this guy's going to be under a lot of pressure because everyone's expecting, you know, episode 1 now.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think he handled that very well.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he really works well in those big science fiction sort of films. You know, I think that's kind of his genre, so.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, too, because he came up from... I watched a show with my sister when I was in high school, I think, called Felicity that he did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just, like, completely different from what he does now. And it's really cool to see his kind of progression. And now he's, like, I mean, what can you do after Star Wars? That's, like, one of the biggest names that you can really do. It's like That's like almost the pinnacle, you know.
Well, maybe he's got his own project that's gonna be even cooler than that.
I hope so, because like Cloverfield was awesome. Like I think he's just so creative with his ideas, and he's putting like fresh stuff out there, which is really cool.
I think we're kind of in a really exciting time now, seeing the reoccurrence of like virtual reality and stuff. I think.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Have you been approached about that kind of stuff yet?
You know, I want to start approaching people about it, honestly, because I think in 10 years we'll be watching VR films, you know, and be sitting, you know, in an environment like that. I think it's really, you know, very exciting, the potential behind it.
Have you tried it yet?
I've been in a couple of them. Yeah, I've sat in a few of those things. They're great.
It's insane, and like once you do it, it's like you immediately understand once you're kind of put in that like that universe. You immediately you're like, oh, I get it. Like you just instinctually know like that's where everything's going.
Yeah.
And for anybody listening, actually, you can check it out too. Just buy Google Cardboard. Just go on Amazon and get Google Cardboard for whatever smartphone you have, and they'll send it to you in the mail. And you just kind of fold this cardboard thing up, and then you just slide your phone in, and you can download different apps, and you can see it for yourself. It's like $2 or $3 just to buy the cardboard, but it's a very worthwhile experience. That's
cool. I know they're going to start selling the Oculus Rift headsets here for a long.
I can't wait. Yeah, later this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting. I think it's the 3D technology it kind of seems to rear its head every few years, you know, but I think that VR is going to overtake that pretty soon.
Yeah, it's finally ready. But I'm really excited about that too, and I think that is where cinema is going. Certainly video games. Video games is driving it, but I think everything is going to kind of go that way. I know they're making documentaries about it. I mentioned it on the show the other day. The one I heard about is like a underwater type of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you can just feel like you're underwater and there's just like dolphins and whales swimming around you, which is just insane.
All that stuff need like creative people. I mean, you know, why not make a Star Wars movie that's all virtual reality, you know?
Oh, so cool.
How awesome would that be, right?
That'd be so cool. So we already talked about like the kind of the mountainous task of, you know, creating a personal project like that, but are there any things that like, you know, as you're doing like the spoonful a day where you're just like, wow, I can't even lift this spoon right now. Are there any things that like resistances that kind of hold you back on a daily basis?
I think just fatigue would have to be the biggest one. You know, in time, I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. I wish that I could just go without sleeping or eating, and that would be even better. But, you know, I pretty much start my day every day at about 4 o'clock. Anybody that sleeps till 8, I've already got 4 hours on them. So, you know.
Wow.
But I mean, I look at, you know, what successful people are doing, and, you know, some of those guys get up early. You know, they get up at, you know, 3 or 4 in the morning and just get their day started, and already, you know, by lunchtime, they've already got a whole day's worth of work done, you know?
Right.
I'm working in a shop right now called K&B Effects, and they start at like 7, which is still an hour or two earlier than some places start. So, by the time 10 o'clock rolls around, I've already got a pretty good hunk of work already started by then.
So that's the idea. And sleep is sometimes the first thing to go if you want to actually pursue your creative passions. You're going to have to sacrifice something, and hopefully it can be unhealthy things for you, like bad habits that you do or just things that you do that kind of waste your time. But sometimes, other things have to kind of go too, whether it's family time or sleep time or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you only get so many hours in a day, and I've got friends that, play a lot of video games and stuff, and I'm like, so what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I just played Dark Souls 3 all weekend, and
right.
I'm like, yeah, I'm still trying to beat this ZBrush game,
Well, that's the way you got to see it, as like a game,
I listen to a guy named Eric Thomas on YouTube that he really inspires me a lot, and he talks about, I don't watch any sports whatsoever, but he talks about a lot of sports figures that I kind of respect and sort of base ideas on as well. I mean, if you look at like Michael Jordan or Kobe or Steph Curry, I mean, that guy is shooting 3-pointers with his eyes closed during a game, because he just shot so many of them. He's making, 70 or 80 free throw shots in practice. He can do it with his eyes closed, And I'm like, I got to be the artistic version of that guy. I got to be able to just knock it out. When you've practiced so much, that it's just second nature. Eddie Van Halen wasn't born Eddie Van Halen. He learned how to play by just picking up his guitar every day and doing it. I think everything is made in practice and made in hard work. And my friend Josh, actually, who recommended me to you, he paints every chance he gets. He picks up a paintbrush, man, and he's just had an art show. He's painting, he's putting stuff together, he's just making it happen during his off time, and that's what it takes. If you want to become a full-time artist, selling it is the hardest part. The making it is the fun part.
Yeah, and it is like that daily practice, like you said, and as you're kind of putting the time in every day, I think it's important, like once you kind of commit to it, once you've decided that this is a part of my life and whatever, to try to not look at it as work and like you said, try to have fun with it, because that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, in my career, I didn't have a backup plan. It was either, I took about a year off to try and get some money saved up, and my backup plan was going to work on a boat with my dad because he was deep sea fishing at the time, and I get seasick and that wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no plan B. I don't know, if I wasn't going to be an artist, I have no idea what I was going to do. That's just what I do. I just bring my sketchbook with me and draw every day, and I'm not even like the most talented or the best or even the best artist around. I just have kind of cultivated, the hard work and saying, yeah, I'll work Sunday, I'll work Christmas Day. Last year I worked New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and Christmas Eve,
Absolutely. It's those sacrifices.
Kind of, just put in the time, because nobody else is going to do it. Oh, they all went home. So they all went back to, Boston or Florida or New York to go visit their family, and I'm ready to work. So let's make whatever this movie is.
I love it, man. Yeah. Do you have any other, besides Eric Thomas, any other kind of YouTube clips or books or anything else that you draw inspiration from, and that maybe we could too?
Yeah, I said there's a really great book up here called Eat That Frog, which another artist turned me on to, and it's all about how to kind of break down your hold on a second, my lovely assistant's going to hand it to me. It's a really small, thin book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog, and it's 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time. And it's literally a little breakdown of things to help you out, Really small, little, quick read, but it's a nice...
That's my kind of book.
Yeah, I know. And it literally is the same sort of recipes and the same sort of things that everyone does. I mean, there's a ritual that everyone goes through to be able to make what they're going to make. If you're going to make a chocolate cake, there's the recipe. It's always going to turn out good if you just follow the recipe. And if you just know how successful people, they're doing whatever it is you want to do, how they did what they're doing, just follow their same steps. They've already broken it down for you,
Absolutely. And with resources like, YouTube and just Google, you can pretty much find out how to do anything. So The task isn't as Herculean as we were talking about before, if you can kind of break it down like that. So it's a great resource, man.
Even my book, I just broke it down by page and panel by panel, and I would just spend a day, on Saturday and say, I'm just going to work on this one page. If I got it done, great. If I didn't, that's okay. I work on it some the next day too.
You can't get down on yourself if you don't quite finish your short-term goals at the pace that you want to. It's just putting in the time every day.
Exactly.
Michael, this has been awesome, but it is time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to kind of reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today. Give them your best words of advice and push them into doing their creative pursuits.
I'm going to say that I personally have been rejected and turned down so many times by so many people that if I had someone like me just say, just keep going. Just don't listen to those people. Just keep doing what you're doing, and somebody somewhere is going to love what you do, even if it's some crazy thing like designing or making monsters. I've even had people say to me before, do you think people are ever going to buy that? And now I'm working on big monster movies or X-Men movies or something silly like that. It's just such a ridiculous career that I have that I only needed just to believe in myself. And I would encourage people to do the same thing. Just keep going. Just keep chipping away at it,
Just keep chipping away and, find the love for it, like you said. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push.
It's been my pleasure. I hope I inspired someone along the way.
Absolutely, you did. You inspired me, so.
Great.
And you can find Michael on his blog, which is michaelbroom.blogspot.com. And on Instagram, he is Michael Broom Art. And on Facebook, he is Michael Broom 13. And you can find all the links that we talked about today, all the resources at yourcreativepush.com/Michael Broom. Michael, thanks again.
Thanks so very much. My pleasure.
It is so fun when you hop on Skype to talk to somebody that creates monsters and they end up being such a sweetheart. I had such a fun time talking to Michael, and he has so much experience. And as you can tell, he just has a world of knowledge about being a creative person. And I just love what he had to say about, taking on this big task, that was in front of him of creating his book, this big giant mountain. And I love the idea of, even if you have a spoon, you can still move that mountain. It's just, you got to do it one spoonful at a time. And if you have this project that's in front of you that you know that you have to do, whatever it is, grab the spoon. That's all you can do, or else you're going to have that mountain in front of you for your entire life. You just got to start digging in and start chipping away piece by piece. And it doesn't have to be that bad. It doesn't have to be a Herculean task, because if you enjoy every little piece that you do of it and just take these short-term goals and don't even look up at that mountain, just take it step by step, I think it becomes much easier for you to finally move that mountain. And it makes it so much easier to enjoy it day by day as you take these little pieces and move these smaller mountains every single day. But like Michael said, there will be days where it's hard, where that initial inspiration that pushed you to start the project will be waning. And that's where commitment comes in. That is where you have to be committed to this project that you have taken on, and you just got to keep pushing forward. Again, don't look up at that mountain. Just be committed to your daily practice of going and getting it done. When you signed up for it, you knew that you'd have to put in work every day. And look, you are now experiencing a day where you have to put the work in. So all you have to do is get through the day, do the work, and then do it again tomorrow until it's finally done. And it's really easy to say, and it's really easy to hear and kind of get started. But when you are faced with that temptation of, giving up or just spending the day doing something different, going back to your bad habits of not being creative, it's very tempting, and it's very easy to get sucked back in there. Even if you say, all right, just today I'm going to do it, or that turns into, all right, today I'm going to do it too. And then, all right, this whole week I'm going to do it too, until you are left with a mountain of work piling up in front of you that you now have the opportunity to lift your chin up and start gazing at and start getting intimidated by it again. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to keep putting the work in. That's where the commitment comes in. So you got to be committed to this project. It's your duty to do it, and you're the only one that can do it. So do it. And hopefully this podcast can help to push you to do it on the days that you are struggling the most. That's what we are here for. Okay? That's what we're here for. On tomorrow's show, we have Jeff Tochi.
People know what they need to do. They try to get around the issue. They try to ignore it. But if you follow your intuition and you know that I need to paint, I need to sing, I need to do whatever, you just have to do it. You got to find a way to get out there, do your thing. Don't question yourself. I mean, leave that up to the critics to do. A friend of mine says there's two kinds of people in the world. There's people that do and there's people that talk about doing. So you really got to be the former.
Jeff is a really cool artist that I had the pleasure of speaking with. He is also a bartender, and we had a great conversation about how to spread your time out and how to really utilize your time that you have to be creative, but also how to utilize that time where, you know, you have to make money as well and trying to get the best value out of that time. But that is for you tomorrow. Hopefully today you're inspired to go and get your work done, so go and get it done. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you tomorrow if you need the push again.